Hello and welcome to Sideline Sessions, episode number 3. We have our guest today that is Greg Harris from the Southwest Idaho Lacrosse Association. I want to warn everybody there's nothing wrong with your TV, but there will be two incredibly handsome bald guys wearing black at the same time. So, welcome,
Thank you.
Mr. Harris, to
Thrilled to be here.
Sideline Sessions, episode 3. Got a little gift for you,
Thank you.
a little Sideline Session shirt.
Rep the brand. That's
Yeah.
awesome. Thank you.
And then each guest with their shirt gets a number on the back corresponding to what episode they were part of. So
Right on.
once again, I know you're super busy. Your day job is busy. And then all this other work that we're going to talk about that you're doing, uh, making a difference here in our lacrosse community is keeping you busy as well. So not really an off season for you.
No. Actually, we've got some fall ball games tonight. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's
awesome.
awesome.
Well, let's get into it so you can go check up on some scores. Uh, So, Southwest Idaho Lacrosse Association commissioner, you're on your fourth year,
Yeah.
which I think it's a 3-year term.
Officially, SWILA set this up as it's just 1 year terms,
Okay.
so that if you had a commissioner that the board didn't think was doing a good job,
Okay.
it's easy to replace them after that
So you
first
must be
year.
doing okay.
I think I'm doing all right.
And then, so fourth year, and then let's go back in time here for a second because I was doing the math. I'm very bad at math, but you've been doing some kind of missioning board volunteering for the lacrosse community for a decade now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's a fairly significant amount of time that you've given. And I want to personally say thank you
Oh,
for that.
well, thank you.
And so 2015, you started coaching youth and middle school teams. You did that till 2021.
Yeah.
In 2006, you helped become a board member of the Treasure Valley Youth Lacrosse, and you were the boys director for that. 2019, founding member of the Idaho's Middle School Lacrosse Association. And then in that same year, you served as the commissioner for, and then continued as commissioner until 2021.
Right.
2020, Idaho Lacrosse Association member.
Hmm.
And then now you're the current commissioner for the, starting in 2022, the Southwest Idaho Lacrosse Association, SWILA, as we call it. So since inception. And I can't think of a more perfect day job that you have than the organizational change management for a significant construction company here in town who also happens to be a very generous supporter, ESI. So, which you're a director of as well.
Yeah.
You are the man of commissions and directions and director and boards.
I try.
Yeah.
Right.
So, and then on top of that all, you're also a dad and a husband. You've been a husband for 32 years, which is awesome. Almost rare nowadays. Wife and I, we got 22 in, and I think we should also include Jen, your wife, in all this work.
Oh, absolutely.
She puts up with you, helps you way behind the scenes. Like it's not like you were alone. She was there. I know
Yeah.
she was. So
Yeah. No, she's been critical to all of this and has very much supported it and pushed me to stay in it at times, sometimes when it got really hard.
yeah,
And she's just been fantastic.
yep. I I know she has been. So she deserves that shout out. So
Yeah.
plus she deals with you and helps
Yes,
calm you down so you can get back to work and go through
absolutely.
everything else. And then you're also a father of 3 kids. Ella, 22, off to New York right now,
Ella is in Washington.
Washington.
Just finished up her master's degree and lives in Anacortes, Washington.
Okay. And then Henry and Clara. Sorry, I got Clara, I think, mixed up there.
Yeah.
Twins, both 18, just both launched in the nest.
Just about 2 weeks ago, both started their college experience. Henry with the College of Idaho, and Clara's attending Fordham University,
There we go.
which is in her campus is actually right across from the Lincoln Center in downtown New York City. So
Awesome.
yeah, really excited for both of them. Very different college experiences, but super excited. So now Jen and I are trying to figure out, what's life like without all the kids in the house.
Yeah. And you're 2 weeks into that.
2 weeks into it. So
So Any solutions or answers yet?
No, she just recently started a new job, so she's
Okay.
been uh, neck deep in that, trying
Okay.
to get that figured out and figure out all the changes she wants to make and how she wants to help make
Yeah.
that better. So yeah, we haven't had a whole lot of time just to sit around and do nothing. Yeah.
And kind of what anchored you into all this was your son Henry started playing lacrosse in 2014 with Treasure Valley Youth Lacrosse League, which has impacted so many young players that are still playing today and continuously feed these upper programs. Uh, and then on to True Lacrosse, where he played under Coach Ball that we had on
Yeah.
earlier, and then also at Bishop Kelly, and now at the College of Idaho. So
Yeah.
excited to see him on the field. He's going to be a huge contributor there for sure.
Exciting time. They started practice last week, and I've heard nothing but great things from him about that so far. So
Awesome.
really excited.
Well, I'm excited to see him play. So we, even though we're both good looking together, we also have kids on the same team. So
Absolutely.
very excited for that. And I know he's going to be quite a difference maker for Coach Drake there. So
Yeah. Yeah. They got a good group of kids.
yeah. So let's start with the first question. You know, we kind of went into your history of how you got involved with lacrosse, but let's talk about SWILA
Hmm.
and what led you to make that jump and help out with this at the time. If my timelines are close, was a new league here in the States.
Yes. Yeah.
And and had separated. If you could fill us a little backstory there, and
It,
then
in the spring of 2022, um, during that high school season, there were a few clubs here locally that just weren't really happy with how things were going in IHSLL. Um, and some of those folks had approached me about running for commissioner of
Mhm.
IHSLL, which at the time was the governing body for all boys high school lacrosse in Idaho. I had just completed my term as the commissioner of the middle school league. So again, they approached me about running as commissioner for IHSLL. Kicked it around with my wife for all of 2 or 3 hours before I said I would give it a shot. I actually went and ran for commissioner there, was elected, got the
Mhm.
majority of the votes, but the commissioner at the time found a technicality to throw out the results there.
Oh,
So after that happened,
mhm.
again, some concerns from local teams. About six of those teams got together, had a meeting. I was lucky enough to be invited. They were talking about what did they want to do next. One option was wait until August, September when the official IHSLL bylaws allowed for the elections.
Yeah.
Their concern at that time was, hey, we're in August or September. And, if this doesn't work out, we were not interested in continuing in IHSLL under that leadership. So they decided about June, after a couple of meetings, that they were going to officially separate from IHSLL and reached out to some other teams in the Treasure Valley that hadn't been included in those conversations. And those teams decided that we
Hmm.
had a good plan and they were ready to make the jump as well. So my first act as commissioner of SWILA was to send a letter to IHSLL uh, informing them that the Treasure Valley teams were leaving their league and they were forming their own league. So, we spent all that fall running around creating bylaws, policies, putting the
Yeah.
framework in place that will allow us to have a high school boys lacrosse team focused here on the Treasure Valley.
Right. Which, once again, incredible amount of work that went into that, and a short period of time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's been 4 years now,
We're just kicking off our fourth year.
fourth year, and how has it been?
Oh, it's been fantastic. Obvious. I think one really good thing about having Wyla just based in here in Southwest Idaho is every month all those folks get in a room together. And I think that was one thing that was really missing with the statewide organization at the
Mhm.
time is everything was a Zoom call,
Yeah.
and trying to have a conversation with all the club presidents, all the head coaches on a Zoom call.
Yeah.
Those meetings, I sat through a few of them, and they'd last 3 or 4 hours, and nothing really got done. So
Absolutely.
I think the best thing we've done is we really make it mandatory that we come sit in a room once a month and we're sitting face to face, and which just leads to better discussions.
Yeah.
Kind of easy to be chippy on the phone when you're not sitting face to face with that person,
Yep.
but when you have to sit across from a table and have a hard discussion, things typically go a little bit better.
I
So,
agree. And I was a board member before SWILA at one of the local high schools, and I remember sitting on those calls, and we were the technology wasn't quite there like it is today. So having this terrible speaker in the middle of a room that had, I don't know, 25 representatives, and then everybody throughout the state trying to make sure to get through. There was no putting your hand up like on a
yeah.
Teams call or whatever to like acknowledge that you had a question or anything. Yeah, it was.
Well, and I would
Yeah,
even say today, we always have representation from every team. Sometimes the club has to call in.
yeah, yeah,
Um, but again, typically those people are pretty quiet.
mhm,
It's really still, I think, very hard to really truly engage with people, even with all the advances we've made in technology recently. So I really appreciate everybody spending the time to come sit in a room and hear me talk for a little while. But, I really value those conversations they have with one
yeah,
another. And it's allowed us to create a league that I think is really focused on the athlete, without maybe a lot of the drama. We can solve problems pretty quickly
yeah,
with how we have it structured right now.
yep.
So
It's
it's
kind
been
of like
really good.
emails, right? That it's hard to get the actual emotion or intent of
Yeah.
a comment,
Yeah.
on the in emails versus if you're sitting there, you know what they meant when they
Yes.
said it,
Absolutely.
and so that absolutely a lot more clear
Yeah.
as to what people's intent are. Um, so who else is running the Swiler with you other than obviously Jen?
Officially, SWILA is set up. There's just three positions that are supported within SWILA. So there's the commissioner, the treasurer, and the secretary. Since its inception, I've been the commissioner. Mona Warshall has been our secretary, or I'm sorry, our treasurer since we started.
Hmm.
The secretary position, we've had a person or
Hmm.
two involved. I'll be real honest, to this point, we haven't had a whole lot for them to do. So,
Okay.
really, it's Mona and myself. It is set up in a way. I don't have a vote in anything we do. I like, everybody
Mhm.
thinks I run the league, and I like to tell people I put together meeting agendas and facilitate conversations is all I really do. Um, each club has a representative that officially sits on the SWILA board.
Mhm.
Generally, it's the club president. Sometimes it may be a vice president. We ask that the same person serve all year long, that it's not being switched out every month,
Yeah.
so we can keep some consistency. But those are the folks that vote on things. So again, I'm facilitating conversations and making sure we're staying on track.
Yeah.
If they ask my opinion, I'll happily give it. Sometimes I play devil's advocate just to make sure we're all thinking about everything in there, but it's really our 14 clubs each have a representative, and they're the voting body. So they're the ones, everything's based on a majority, and that's how we make any changes to the league.
Yeah. Awesome. And the Warshaw family,
Oh,
another great family that's been around for a long time,
yeah.
making a difference. You know, stepping up when it's time to step up, and then making sure that when they hand those keys to the next person, it's definitely better
Well, and
than what they
Mona
had
at the
before.
time was serving as the treasurer for IHSLL. And in that final season that everybody was in one league there, Mona as the secretary was just seeing a lot of things that weren't getting done. So she and her husband Phil, who's been instrumental to lacrosse here in the valley, really took the reins there, and made sure that they could have playoffs, that they had a location for the state championship
Yeah.
game that year. And when Mona heard we were we were doing this, she raised her hand immediately and said, she wanted to be involved, and she's been truly instrumental in making this happen. And even Phil, even though he hasn't had an official position, is one of my certainly trusted advisors there.
That
So
backup spouse, right?
yeah,
Unofficial, official board member that helps out.
yeah,
So,
yeah, that'd be
yeah,
great.
and Phil's, you know, I mean, anybody's been around long enough, they've dealt with that family and
Yeah.
know that they care.
Oh,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
And it's great that they're still able to participate as much as they want and continue doing what they do, which is make things better.
Well, and I'll even say my son was working at a local sporting goods store, I think last winter, and Phil came in a couple times, and Henry said, I didn't get anything done today because I stood there and talked to Phil for 2 hours about lacrosse. And Henry just absolutely loved it. Phil is always a guy that
Sure.
will tell you what he thinks and
Mhm.
why he thinks it and what path you think you should take. And Henry really appreciated that and really took it to heart. So
Great.
again, I can't say enough great things about Phil and Mona.
Which those positions will someday be open,
Hmm.
right? So
Yeah,
short-term goals. That's what I'm getting to here next, is that at
uh,
some point.
officially, and I was thinking about it before coming into
Mhm.
this year, of stepping back from the commissioner role. I don't think it's really healthy for an organization to have one or two people in charge for too long. You always need
Yeah.
fresh ideas, new ideas, things like that. But I did agree to do it for one more year,
Mhm.
but with the caveat that this will be my last year as commissioner. Just again to allow for somebody new to come in to do it. And I think I start all our meetings this year with just a reminder: this is my last year.
Yeah.
This is my last September meeting with SWILA. So, and the great thing is, folks have really taken that to heart and are starting to bring
Great.
forward some names, and we're having some conversations with people that might be interested in doing it
That's
going
great.
forward.
And that's where I was. Like, how can we
Yeah.
help promote the
Well,
succession planning for
and
you?
anybody that's listening to this, if they're interested or want to learn more about
Mhm.
what I do for the league, what Mona does for the league, because Mona has also said this is her last year,
Okay.
reach out, and I'm always happy to have a conversation and talk about all the great things that happen.
Yeah.
Certainly, there's some things that can be challenging at times. I
Yep.
won't hide any of it, but
And then is there a date?
the elections officially will be at our June meeting. So we meet the first Tuesday of every month.
Okay.
So our bylaws require an election in that meeting.
Okay.
If somebody's interested, again, per our bylaws, we have to announce it to the board of who
Mhm.
wants to be on the ballot to allow time for them to ask questions and stuff like that. So, if anybody's interested, I would certainly say make contact with me or your club representative by April, certainly, because I want to be able to push that out in our May meeting of here's who's going to be on the ballot, allow people to ask questions and all
Yeah.
that.
Is it possible for anybody to just kind of come in and job shadow and kind of see what
Oh,
it's like?
absolutely. And that's with some of the names that have been brought forward. That's what I've encouraged those club presidents. It's
Hmm.
like bring them to a couple of meetings, let them see how it runs, give them all my contact information so we can have conversations. Again, I'm not handpicking somebody. I'm not saying this is your next commissioner, but yeah, the SWILA board has to vote on it.
Yeah.
But I think it's really important that those folks are allowed to connect faces and names and have some conversations with those folks before they elect the next person.
Awesome. I guess that let's talk a couple short-term goals
Hmm.
that maybe you had that when you started, and whether you achieve those, and maybe a couple new short ones that you would like to that you're working on, and you want to see maybe the next folks that come in and still achieve those,
Yeah.
whether the growth or whatever. You tell me.
No, I think a couple things that jump to mind. I was really hoping within 4 years we'd have more clubs participating in SWILA. We actually started that first year with 15 clubs.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, Skyview's program shut down after that first year. So we've had a very strong 14 teams all 4 years. What we're we have been struggling with is pulling in new clubs, but here very recently. We've had a couple of schools or parents from schools reach out,
Okay.
at least expressing interest in trying to form a team to join SWILA.
Okay.
What they're talking about right now is maybe co-opting with another club,
Sure.
So we for a long time we had the Bora Capital kind of
Hmm.
combined team. So they're interested in starting that way, and then hopefully in a couple of years they can have their own team.
Yeah, that's
Um,
great.
Certainly, a goal every year is try to increase the number of boys participating in high school lacrosse. Again, we've seen growth every year, but it's just slow growth, I would say. Um, and I attribute some of that to COVID. We lost, I think, all the programs in the valley lost a lot of players post COVID. So now we're trying to figure out how can we build up those ranks again. Because for us to be really successful, we've got to have really strong middle school lacrosse. We've got to have really strong Treasure Valley youth, any youth program
Yeah,
type of lacrosse. We got to be able to expose more kids to that and create that love early on because we've
yeah,
seen that's where we're most successful.
absolutely. And I think, another thing, we have new exposure here in the Valley for lacrosse with NNU going Division two, NCAA. College of Idaho is looking strong. Boise State recently is starting to dominate their conference.
Yeah.
There's a top end need as well, and then but those folks are also going to do their job and highlight um, Idaho and Idaho lacrosse. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to all work together, help spark some new interest in the sport. It's just making sure those opportunities are available when
Absolutely.
those kids come
Not
out.
every kid that plays lacrosse necessarily wants to go back east and compete
Right.
in lacrosse back east. So, I give Tom Blanchard a lot of credit for getting the NNU program started and now transitioning into an NCAA D2. Um, Coach Drake O'Neill at College of Idaho, yes, as I'm sure you heard in his interview, they compete in a club league, but it's considered a full varsity lacrosse
Right.
experience at College of Idaho. They've got the trainers and the facilities and all that, given
Yeah.
scholarships. So those guys that don't necessarily want to go back east now have an opportunity that they can stay
Yeah.
here and continue to play lacrosse and earn some scholarships for it and all that kind of fun stuff. So
Yeah. So we
it's really
talked.
exciting.
It is exciting, and I'm excited to mention BSU again. I'm excited to have their coaches soon. A little
Yeah.
spoiler alert for folks coming up, but also talk about another options here for players
Yeah.
um, that want to, just different experiences
Well, and
in general.
that's to my understanding, that's really a player-led organization. And again, that's going to lead to a different college lacrosse experience.
Right.
And that can really fit what some players want to do, where they're certainly very competitive and it's super exciting to see how competitive they are in their league. But it can just lead to a different experience for those players.
Yep.
And we're going to have more kids involved. Again, some guys that Henry went to college with are now at BSU are looking to join the lacrosse program there. So
Yeah.
it's really exciting to see those kids be
Absolutely.
able to continue to play lacrosse.
I just love seeing the kids continue. Right.
Yeah.
So they've put so much work in. Uh, it's just fun to see them do. Give me
Oh,
one more season. Right. I'm
well,
just such a fan.
and even expand on that more with men's league here,
Right.
with the Bighorns
Hmm.
indoor team,
Absolutely.
men's team here now. We're just starting to really create that culture of
Yeah.
you don't just play in high school or middle school and you're done. You can play, well into your advanced age now.
Yep. I think I've advanced beyond that,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
yeah. So we talked a little bit about short-term goals. A couple long-term that maybe, you getting those programs back in or adding to the
Mhm.
growth. What's something else that isn't necessarily just the teams, but
Yeah,
what else can SWILA do or achieve to help with that growth and long-term
certainly
goals?
things I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a goal, but something we'll continue to explore is getting lacrosse sanctioned in Idaho.
Mhm.
Um, I wouldn't say that I'm totally bought into that's the best direction for boys lacrosse in Idaho. But I think it's something really important for the league to continue to explore, create, and you continue to create those connections with um, the High School Activities Association, district ADs, things like that, to so that if it does happen, they've got a seat at the table to help make it the best it can possibly be.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of really good things that come out of sanctioning,
Yeah.
but also there's some things that aren't as good.
I'd love to hear them.
Well,
Pros and cons, just a couple.
the pros are certainly, hey, now we can use the stadium.
Right.
We don't necessarily get charged to be able to use the
Sure.
stadium. Even practice space. I wouldn't say stadiums are our biggest challenge.
Yeah.
It's coming up with practice space for some of these teams. A lot of our teams, even though they play in their high school stadium, they're practicing in a local middle school because they can't find any space at the high school for them to be able to practice. When you're sanctioned, generally the schools will provide the trainers
Hmm.
and some of those resources, which is an additional cost right now for all our programs. We require that we have trainers
Yeah.
at the game. So they've got to go out and contract with somebody, and pay somebody to be there. And some of the, other things, use of the weight room,
Right.
and other school facilities for team activities, uh, being able to use the locker room.
Sure.
For me, I think a big part of the high school athletics experience is the locker room. I played football and basketball and ran track and did all those things. And I think we probably spent more time in the locker room before and after the game than maybe we did at practice. And it really creates that strong team bond, being able to hang out with guys that way. And right now, there are very few of our programs that even on game day have access to locker rooms. So, I think those are the really big pros. And when you're talking about transportation to games
Hmm.
and things like that, you get access to those things. Um, on the con side, again, you're under the umbrella of a much larger organization that it's trying to cover a whole lot of sports, and I think they do a fantastic job. But things like fall ball, would we continue to be able to play fall ball at least under the school's name? Right now, SWILA, we have a fall season. We still consider it more of a developmental season,
Hmm.
and then we have the official spring season. But because we play games against one another during the fall, would a sanctioned sport be allowed to do that? Um, and then control, when you become sanctioned, it's not like
Hmm.
you just get handed a big pot of money and say, here, go
Yeah.
run your program.
Right.
So you lose a lot of control there. And I wouldn't say that being sanctioned is necessarily going to make it any less expensive. It'll certainly cut down on some of the costs, but for anybody that's had an athlete play football or play baseball, you're still getting hit with $500 or $600 in
Hmm.
additional team fees every year.
Yeah.
So you lose a lot of control, but again, having access to fields and
Yeah.
stadiums and some of that could be a real upside of being
I agree.
sanctioned.
And then there's some development that can come from having those resources, like being able to have film
Yeah.
somewhere easy for
Oh,
kids to
yeah.
go to, whether it's
Yeah.
the cafeteria or, at some point there's a teacher that's a coach,
Mhm.
their classroom to sit down and talk and develop, go through the X's and O's versus, I know we've hosted plenty of film classes and loved hosting the team and feeding them at the same time, but it's different when you have an environment where you're focused on a particular thing. Like when you
Yeah.
go there, whether it's like the locker room you're talking about, that's like your space, the team's space, their
Mhm.
sanctuary to address things, to be vulnerable, right?
Yeah.
Be coached. And once again, once you're like in film, having that setting to lock in, I think makes a big difference. And then, just, if we're short facilities, we're short facilities, but there's ways that there's still resources there
Yeah.
that can help. And it doesn't always have to just be the turf, right? So,
Oh, absolutely.
yeah.
And I would say another long-term goal here
Mhm.
and one thing that will assist maybe getting sanctioned at some point is having enough officials to be able to support everything we want to do. And when I say we, that's the larger lacrosse community,
Yeah.
because ILOA is our officials organization, and they're not just supporting high school. They're doing
Right.
all the college games, they're doing all the middle school, the youth games, and they're not just covering the Treasure Valley. They're covering the entire state of Idaho, and get pulled into other college games in other regions. I would love to have, similar to a football model, every high school team be able to play on Friday night and have that kind of Friday night lights kind of
Mhm.
experience. Certainly to play all the games we want to, there would still be some games during the middle of the week, but I'd
Right.
love for every team to be able to play on Friday night because I think that creates some excitement. It
Yep.
creates an experience. For the players, you don't have to get up and go to school the next day. Yeah,
Yeah.
no. For parents and spectators, they're just more likely to show up on a Friday night maybe than a Tuesday night. And right now, with the officials, I think they do a fantastic job. But in general, we're limited to games Monday through Friday, and we can't have more than three events on any particular day. So
Okay.
we as much as I'd like to have every team
Yeah.
play Friday night, we just can't physically do it right now. And right now, with how few officials we really have and all they're trying to cover, those guys are officiating 4 and 5 nights a week.
Mhm.
So, and that covers, 10 or 12 weeks.
Yeah.
So we're just wearing those guys out
Yep.
as well.
I'm excited. We've reached out to have the
Mhm.
league on, officials league.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get their point of view too, and give a platform for them to talk about some of
Yeah.
the how we can help and make changes and
And again, I can't
invest.
express how much I appreciate what they do. It is probably the toughest job in,
Yeah.
in
Well,
lacrosse.
we can't do it without them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all that they do and all that they cover with the limited number of people and resources they have
Yeah.
is just, I've never had to cancel a game because we didn't have an official.
Yeah.
So I thank
Kudos
them
to
for
those
that.
guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so you touched on it. Our first show, Coach Drake brought up how he would enjoy seeing more games.
Hmm.
And whether it's, I don't think it necessarily has to be more per week, but extending that season a little. I think right now we shoot around 10 to 14 games.
And in our first 3 years, we've told teams that they could schedule up to 10. If we could support a few more, we'll do that based on field availability, officials availability. So we've had some clubs that are able to compete in 14 or 15 games, but the vast majority of our teams are playing between 10 and 11 games, and a couple things that really bound us there, one of the discussions we're having right now is, can we make some adjustments, add in potentially an additional game, some more high impact games? But in general, we have it from the first week of March till about the second weekend in May to get in all of our lacrosse. If we're playing into February, if
Hmm.
we're scheduling in games in February, you can pretty much count on it's going to snow or it's going to rain like crazy and make the field unplayable.
Yeah.
Um, and the other thing we run into, and I applaud a lot of these players, they're multi-sport athletes that are competing in lacrosse. And I don't know if many people have realized, but state basketball, boys basketball,
Yeah.
last year was backed up an additional week. And I know for like Timberline, for instance,
Hmm.
they have a lot of basketball players that play
Yeah.
lacrosse. So they had to play their first two, maybe three games,
Yeah.
somewhat shorter roster because luckily they did very well in basketball and those guys were still committed. We have a lot of guys that wrestle.
Hmm.
So starting much earlier than that first week of March is really challenging. Then, of course, we have a dead week because of spring break.
Yep.
Luckily, this year it looks like everybody's spring break lines up on the same week. Most years we've had two weeks where we've had to compensate for spring break, but no lacrosse gets played then. And then all these schools are just graduating earlier. We've had a pretty consistent date between May 16th and May 18th that we've hosted our championship. But it used to be we could have the championship and then they'd have another maybe week or two of school before graduation start. We're going to host our championship game May 16th this year, I believe is the date that
I'm writing
that
that down.
that Saturday. But we actually have schools that kids start graduating on Monday,
Hmm.
May 18th. So not only is it just not a finals week behind us, kids are gone. And certainly once school's over and you've graduated,
Right.
families start going every different direction.
Yeah.
So if we start bleeding into their summer vacation to be able to host more games, I don't think it's a very successful model that way. So again, ultimately we have about 8 to 10 weeks to try to fit in between 10 and 15 games for these teams.
Okay. And as a reminder, Coach Drake mentioned facilities are available. It
Yeah.
helps.
Well,
So we'll hold him to it.
they've been fantastic
Mhm.
because even playing some of those games the first week of March
Right.
can be a challenge. We have teams that don't have lighted fields. So if you're trying to play a JV, then a varsity game,
Yeah.
the sun's setting before you can get that done. So being able to have those kind of facilities with lights, there we get a big rainfall.
Yep.
Schools don't want us playing on their grass when we've gotten a lot of rain. So having those options through the College of Idaho and some other places are really going to help us be more successful as we continue on. And to Drake's point, we're trying to figure out how to have some more again impactful games throughout the season as well. So that's a big point of discussion for our next
That's
league
great.
meeting.
Well, he offered it up. Let's hold him to it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
uh, if you had a magic wand and you could wave it, what's a couple things you would love to see change or that you would implement today for Idaho lacrosse that could be restricted any other way?
Again, that first thing I jump back to is having more officials. I think ILOA has done a fantastic job. They started a juniors official program a number of years ago, which are essentially our high school players that are
Hmm.
officiating a lot of the youth lacrosse games. I think that's been a fantastic model. But being able to continue to develop some of the more high level officials that can cover more high school lacrosse
Yeah.
games as our game continues to grow. I certainly think that would make a big impact right away. Um, and then again, I'd love to get more schools involved in the game. With I should know off the top of my head, but I don't know how many high schools we have here. But right now we only have 14 programs in the valley. Including
Hmm.
Emmett over the hill there. So I'd really love to figure out how to get more of the established schools to have a program. Again, there's Capitol High School out there
Yeah.
that doesn't have a program. Um, and I think we're going to start seeing more private schools here in the valley, trying to connect with them early to see if we can get a lacrosse program connected with
Yeah.
them. But then also just grow a little bit outside of the valley.
Yeah.
Again, SWILA was started to concentrate
Hmm.
on Southwest Idaho. We've had teams from out of the area contact us interested in
Yeah.
joining our league, but consistently our board has not shown interest in that. So how can we reach out to some of the more extended communities here in Southwest Idaho and generate lacrosse programs there?
Yeah. Uh, if you don't mind, can I dig into a little bit of like why they would want to expand? Is it like a travel expense or?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah. Again, one of the real driving factors for some of those clubs initially when we created SWILA is the playoff structure the IHSLL had. And while I think it was probably fair for the vast majority, they'd split Idaho up into 4 regions. The number one team in each of those regions got to play a home playoff game. But the number two team here in the Valley would have to go to Coeur d'Alene, would have to go to Jackson Hole, things like that. I remember, I think it was the last year of IHSLL, Eagle had to travel up to Lake City. You know,
Yeah.
Lake City was the number one in their region, Eagle was number two here. Eagle had to spend all that money, charter a bus, do, 7 or 8 hours worth of travel,
Yeah.
and they won the game 18 to nothing. So some of those teams had a lot of challenge with number one, they couldn't plan on their travel and the expense around that.
Yeah.
You could certainly say we're going to charge fees, hoping we're going to travel for the playoffs and set that money aside. But they just didn't feel like they had a lot of control there. So now by keeping it focused here in the valley, they're able to determine this time of the year, do we want to travel to Jackson
Yeah.
Hole? Do we want to travel to Reno as a team and play? and they can really plan for it. It's not an emergency fund we have to set up over here in case we're the second ranked team
Yeah.
in the valley.
And I want to kind of point out to push back on those teams a little. When you go to football
Mhm.
here, even though it's sanctioned, there's a budget given by the school districts, but that program actually functions off the booster money,
So,
right? So the fee in West Ada is somewhere around maybe 150, 175 to actually get your athlete
mhm.
hard to play sports. That's the minimum you have to pay.
Yeah.
The encouragement to make sure that the program or the experience is better
Hmm.
is that extra where we get into that $500 range of support,
Yeah.
the implied support, right? You don't have to, but the booster program does a great job of saying, hey, these are the things that actually require us to be at this level and the reason why you've joined.
Yeah.
And I guess falling back to your organizational change management position, we can't be in our own way if we want to grow and keep this thing alive. We're going to have to
Yeah.
make concessions here to let new people in, and maybe it's neutral fields that we work on, right? That
Yeah.
help meet in the middle. I know just the other day for football, uh, a North Idaho team out of up by Orfino came down here to play Oakley and
Hmm.
Homedale because it was like equal distance for both teams to travel.
Yeah.
And but it made it happen, and the expansion grows, and there's more teams, and
Yeah.
the experience becomes more in itself because we're creating more opportunities for maybe sponsorships into like SWILA or something that
Yeah.
maybe helps compensate for some of those things.
And I think, a good thing there is when SWILA was started, there was nothing put in place that says you can't go play the
Yeah,
other leagues teams.
sure.
Um, but now you can really plan for it.
Yeah.
We're going to go play Jackson or somebody else.
Hmm.
IHSLL has really expanded into the Spokane area and have picked up
Yeah.
a lot of teams there. We have a lot of those teams that travel in and play. I think Jackson Hole's been here every year. Bozeman has come
Yeah.
down. I know last year, maybe the year before as
Hmm.
well, and they typically pick up a few games while they're here. So certainly the local teams are interested in playing other competition. It's just being able to plan for it to really be able to do it. And it's been a couple years since I read the state athletic association's
Hmm.
rules, but yeah, if I remember correctly, they actually fund a lot of like the playoff travel and things like that.
Sure.
So again, could be a possible good thing
Yeah.
about sanctioning,
Yeah.
you know, is you get that kind of support. Um, but we're also every year we talk about how can we facilitate the SWILA champion playing the IHSLL champion, and again, mostly right now it's come down to timing. We're
Okay.
running up. They play their championship game on the same day. And again, all of our kids start graduating that next week or going off and playing club lacrosse, doing other things. So it's been a little bit of a timing issue there as well. But I know there's still a lot of interest of playing the best
It's
teams in
almost
other
like you knew I
regions.
was going to ask that question because we need a one sole champion here,
Yeah,
regardless of whether it actually means something, but just because.
yeah,
Why not?
yeah,
Just for fun.
absolutely.
Bragging rights.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. We just got to figure out how to do it.
Yep.
And again, that's one of the reasons we didn't have an all-star game last year. We just ran out of time. There wasn't
Yeah.
another day on the calendar where it was going to work for everybody
Yeah.
after that championship game. And we want that to be a really impactful, fun, rewarding game
Hmm.
for the boys. We did it right after the Double A championship our first 2 years.
Right.
And again, it was a fun game, but we had a lot of players opt out because they were playing in a championship game. And
Yeah.
whether they won or lost, they wanted to be with their teammates after that game.
Yep.
So again,
And as they should.
oh, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. Don't fault anybody for that at all. But I just wish I had another 3 weeks in the calendar before everybody starts dispersing.
Yeah. So, some of the things that I want to get back to maybe how we get in our own way. I'm a parent, was a parent, player. I, when I first got into this as a new parent into lacrosse, I came from the football world, like almost everybody. and heckling or yelling was just kind of what happened, right?
Hmm.
Uh, it doesn't make it right, but I knew I was educated quickly that you don't need to just always chew the ref's butt, right?
Yeah,
What good is that going to do?
absolutely.
And I had a rude awakening when I started recording games, and I heard myself, and I was like, man, I sound like an idiot.
Mhm.
And what good am I doing here, right? This is embarrassing. So, um, if we could have a moment here, you got an opportunity to talk about parents, and it's not about them.
Yeah, well, and again, I love parents' passion
Hmm.
for their son, number one, um, for the sport as well. But that has probably been our biggest challenge since the league has started, is how some of our parents, and I'm not saying it's a league-wide problem by any means. Generally, it's a pocket here or there that we have a challenge with each year. And again, I think their passion for their son
Hmm.
kind of gets in the way at times. So again, if people are sitting there berating refs, yelling at
Hmm.
refs all the time, why are they going to want to keep doing this? You know, a lot
Absolutely.
of people just tell me, oh, they got to have thicker skin. Well, I think even somebody with the thickest skin at some point, if you're officiating 5, 6, 8 games a week for 10 weeks and
Yeah.
you're getting yelled at all the time, you're going to want to step away. Um, so I certainly don't expect people to sit there on their hands and just give it the golf clap.
Yeah.
I want people to react. Yeah, I want it to be exciting, but yelling at officials or coaches or their players,
Hmm.
um, just takes away from the game. You let the
Yeah.
officials officiate, let the coaches coach, and let the players play. And I went to games at every home stadium we had last year. I think ultimately I hit a little over 50 games last year, and it's still amazing to me how many parents continue to try to coach their kid from the sideline. So this kid's getting the coach's
Hmm.
instruction in one ear, the parent's instruction in the other, and you put them in a oh, most of the time they were the exact opposite. So I absolutely encourage parents, if something happened during a game, whether it's related to an official or a coach or anything, all of our clubs have a parent representative that sit on their board, and that person is there to take their feedback and direct it appropriately, whether it needs to go to the coaching staff, come to me at the league,
Hmm.
whoever. So really utilize that person to express your concern.
Yeah.
The other thing I see or I listen to when I sit in the stands is a lot of people yell at the officials. Either they blew the call or they're not making the call. And occasionally I'll go sit to that person and like, what happened there? Why are you so upset about that?
Right.
And they'll talk about, well, that was they blew the call there. And it's like, well,
Hmm.
no, actually the rule states this. So they made the correct call or non-call based on the rules. And that's a challenge with lacrosse is there's a lot of gray area, a lot of what was the intent.
Hmm.
Um, so
Yeah.
again, grab that rule book and read through it a couple of times before you really start yelling at the officials for not making those calls. So,
And on top of that, I know at the beginning of every season, there's a parents' meeting. They
oh
go
yeah,
and sign up, and they are begging for help.
yes,
And it could be coaching, it could be field setup, it could be team meals, and it could be that person that's the liaison to help
yeah.
uh, settle these things the right way. And then, like you mentioned, there's a system set up,
Hmm.
and if people are getting it wrong consistently, the system will document it
Yeah.
and help make drive that change.
And one thing we require of all our teams is that every team, whether you're home or away, each team provides a sideline rep. And that person isn't over there to stand with the players. They're supposed to be in the stands and monitoring their
Hmm.
spectators. So again, making sure that we have a really strong person in that role for each team. But if you're being approached by your team sideline monitor and they're saying, "Hey, you need to control it a little bit,"
Yeah,
don't take that as a personal attack because much like you
yeah,
said, I find myself sitting in the stands sometimes,
yeah,
and something happens and I'm like, just you know,
Right.
and I really find myself having to, tone it down at times. And sometimes we need that external person to
Mhm.
come and say, "You're taking a little bit far. Just tone it down." And again, most people do fantastic with that. But I watched a few people that had to be escorted from stadiums last year
Yeah.
because they just, again, I appreciate their passion, but we can't drive
Yeah.
good coaches and good officials and quite honestly, good players out of this game.
And for new parents that are getting into this, the best way to learn the game is to volunteer on that table side. You get a
Uh,
whole perspective that you just don't get in the
well,
stands, and you get to hear the refs, you
yeah.
get to hear the coaches, you see how it plays out, and like the call that was made, it could be completely different
Mhm.
than what you thought they were calling it for, and or who was actually in who was wrong,
Yeah.
right? So, and to learn the stats and what that means and how the game flows, I it's the best seat in the house
Yeah.
over there at
Well,
that table.
I worked on, Henry played for three different teams through high school. So the his freshman year, Oahe High School had just opened up. They didn't have a boys lacrosse team,
Hmm.
so he continued to play for Eagle that year. So I actually volunteered on Eagles board. His second year, Oahe, Chris
Yeah.
Hillier moved to town, took the bull by the horns, got a team up and running. So I tried to
Hmm.
volunteer for Chris as much as I could, and then the last 2 years of high school, Henry transferred over to Bishop Kelly, and again I volunteered with that club, wherever they needed me. But I would really, really encourage parents, grandparents, whoever, get out there and volunteer. And the first thing I hear when I'm seeking volunteers is, I don't know anything about the game. There are a lot of things that need to be done to have a successful game day and a successful club that don't require any knowledge of lacrosse. So volunteer early. If you can do it in middle
Hmm.
school and start gaining some of that knowledge, do it then, but certainly
Yeah.
if your son's a freshman and he's just getting involved in lacrosse, sign up, be a volunteer, run the scoreboard, help set up the field, those things that don't really take any lacrosse
Yep.
knowledge. And if you can transfer into running the book, being a spotter,
Right.
I agree with you. That's the best seat in the house.
Absolutely. And I know someone has been doing it for years that is going to age out.
Oh,
And I've always thought that, let me back up, Greg. I've been in that press box with you for a couple years now at during these games, and you're a parent watching your kid play, and you're also a board member. You could be running the clock for the JV game before your son plays in the varsity game. You could be down on the field setting things up, and at the same time on the phone, dealing with SWILA stuff or checking scores or
yeah.
uh, it, it's it's amazing, and it's a very generous
Yeah.
amount of time that you give to all these people's kids while you're
Wow.
sitting there, and on top of it all, making sure, just trying to be a fan and a dad. So we need some help, right? It's not fair. And I think what I'm getting at is there's no reason with the amount of people that show up that have opinions, right? And or whatever that a senior parent should be doing that much work. And we
Well,
need to fix that. They should be able to be a fan after all those years of helping build that program and
yeah.
watch your kid, play. Like, let them be a fan. Let them
Well, and
enjoy the
and
experience
I
as
would
well.
again really encourage people to get involved early. If your son's playing JV, that's a great way to learn to do the book
Yep.
because ultimately we're not reporting JV stats in things like
Hmm.
that. You can make some mistakes and all that, so learn it.
Yeah.
But yeah, certainly as a parent, both Henry and his twin sister Clara played lacrosse. She played at Oahe. Um, I know once you get to that senior year, I did it because I loved it. I just love
Yeah.
being involved and running around and being busy. But I know that all the different boards I served on, there were a lot of senior parents on it, and they felt they had to do a lot of work. And at that point, they wanted to sit back and,
Right.
and watch the game. So again, I would encourage those parents of freshmen and sophomores and
Yeah.
juniors to really get involved. And I think our most successful clubs have done a really good job of making sure there's representation from each class on their board,
Hmm.
and they do a good job of succession planning, which creates a really solid long-term team. The times I see clubs run into the most trouble is a group comes in and that group runs it all the way up to the senior year. Their
Yeah.
kids graduate, and then all of a sudden there's a new group, and they've got to learn everything. They don't have the mentors. They don't have a good real
Yeah.
succession plan there. So
And on that, we talked a little before the show about U.S. Lacrosse comes down,
yeah.
does meetings and helps with information on how to set up programs or resources. I know you're just a great person you are. If a program needed
Oh,
some planning, right? Help with planning and like, hey, we're going to have this problem. How can we
yeah.
set up succession planning and or get more people involved? I know that you would be available and or other programs would be happy to help set up
Yeah.
some resources and
Well,
talk about it.
there's Lynn Porterfield, who is the Pacific Region Director for USA Lacrosse. She's been involved in this area nearly as long as I've been doing this. She is an absolute fantastic resource. USA Lacrosse has a lot
Hmm.
of templates and structure that you can just download off of their website, but certainly being able to connect with Lynn, as you talked about, Lynn comes here, she pulls together all the commissioners, all the heads of the different leagues and people involved almost on a quarterly basis, where she
Hmm.
tries to get us all in a room and make sure we're all talking to
Yeah.
one another. She's always available to do that. And again, I'm certainly not stepping away from lacrosse just because my term is as commissioner is up. I would love to be able to continue to help clubs with anything they want to do. You know, I
Be
I was
president.
the guy that lined fields for Eagle Lacrosse,
Yeah.
every Sunday for a number of years. So I've done it all, from lining the
Hmm.
fields to running game days to being on a board and being on the league as
Yeah.
well. So
I've lined a lot of fields. There is
yeah,
some pleasure in like perfect layout, crisp lines on a field, especially getting the crease just right.
yeah.
I mean, it's
And then there are
very
those
rewarding.
guys like Jim Bradbury and Brian Graham that anytime I'd make a little tweak, they
Oh
like to
man.
take a picture of it and send it
Yeah.
to me,
What is this?
right after I was done. What are you doing out there?
Yeah. What happened?
No, I love those guys.
Yeah. So I want to, like we talked about a lot of things. I want to get into a positive thing here. Which program in SWILA has the best fans? And yet, now that you're not officially affiliated with anybody,
Yeah.
let's do this. Who's got the
Well,
best hype? Who's got the most supportive? Who's got the loudest folks in the
I would
stands?
say, again, all of our programs I think
Oh
have
boy.
have great support.
Yeah.
Um, but over my
Hmm.
time, um, where I probably most pleasantly surprised every time I go out to Timberline, those fans or those stands are packed. They've got a whole cadre of parents that stand on one end that, can just feel the nervous energy. I think they've always done a really great job
Hmm.
at Timberline. But
I bet Joe Danfeld's just so stoked right
oh,
now that
yeah,
you
I expect
mentioned
a little,
Timberline.
something here. But no, I think they've done a great job. And again, that's not just last year, that's
Right.
been multiple years. Timberline's been super supportive. But again, I think all of our programs have done a really good
Yeah.
job and have at least a few really rabid fans on every sideline, which
Which we
makes it
need.
really fun.
We need that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, you don't want it to be a golf tournament where it's just,
No.
a nice
No.
clap here and
No.
here
We
and
need
there.
those cheers to drown out the
Yeah.
couple of silly guys that are
Yeah,
heckling or
absolutely.
whatever. But that's good. And I think how great would it be if we started a little tradition about best fans for the
Yeah.
season or something?
No, that'd be great.
Maybe Mountain Lacrosse Network can help out with that. Give them a little trophy or something. So let's like we've talked, you're aging out,
Yep.
as they say
A
in
lot of
our
gray in
world.
the beard.
Well, and then like it's time for the next folks to
Yeah,
come in, right? So
absolutely.
how you know coaches, parents, it's one thing to get on the board, but what other things does SWILA need that people can help with if let's say they just don't want to be a board member, but they still want to support it?
The best thing for SWILA in particular, again, we're setting agendas and facilitating
Yeah.
conversations. We do. We host all the playoffs, so that's not an additional cost to our teams. Um, so if there's anybody out there that wants to help us sponsor playoffs, championships, we're always very open to that. But I think where people can really help the most is stepping in with their club and how can they support that board. Um, that's going to be the biggest thing, I think, too, having really strong clubs and long-term, long-sustaining programs through here.
Yeah.
From a player's standpoint, I think the best thing they can do is reach into the middle school and youth programs, and it can be as simple as those when a varsity guy shows up to a middle school game,
Yeah.
you better believe all those middle school guys
Oh, they're
recognize it, and
yeah. They're
it's
gonna puff
huge.
right up, right?
You give those guys a couple of high fives or fist bumps, and they'll remember it forever. Um, so if they have the opportunity to become a junior official, fantastic. Great way to earn some money as well. But if they can and mentor younger players, coach younger players, but again, something as simple as just showing up to a middle school or TVYL game
Hmm.
goes a long way.
Yep.
And I would say similar for coaches, we have a great group of head coaches for all of our programs.
Yeah.
But if they have an opportunity, and I know it's tough for these guys, they've got a full-time real job, and I know they're putting in full-time plus type of hours coaching lacrosse, but where they have an opportunity to connect with middle school and youth coaches. I had Scott Milling was a coordinator and the head coach at
Hmm.
Eagle. And when I was a middle school coach at Eagle, Scott and I had constant communication. He would come stand on our sidelines, and it wasn't to coach, it was just to let us
To
know
be
things
present.
we could do better, or did you
Yeah.
see this, or hey, you did a great job in that.
Right.
And again, the kids love it when the varsity head coach is standing there.
Those coaches are also looking for what's coming up, right?
Yeah. Oh,
So,
oh yeah, yeah. And I would say even, quite a number of years ago when John Mundy was coaching at Boise State, he was
mhm,
constantly inviting coaches, come watch one of our practices. And again, he would always take time to come over and say, here's why we're doing this. Because again, I had no lacrosse experience coming into this. YouTube was my best friend, in
yeah.
trying to learn it. So having those mentors like Scott and John Mundy, being so available, and Gary
Mhm.
Wheeler, willing to talk lacrosse at any time was really huge. So I would really encourage our coaches when they have the time, and I know they're doing a ton, but reach out to those middle school and youth coaches as well.
Okay. Before we close out, any subject that we didn't get to talk about that you want to touch on?
No, I just want to take a minute to recognize and thank all those people that have made this such an enjoyable 10, 11 year journey at this point. Again, with my wife and how supportive she's been.
Mhm.
Certainly my kids, Henry playing, Clara playing. It's been a fantastic decade of being in lacrosse. Back to my early days with TVYLL. Sean Murphy was the Eagle TVYLL coach and Henry's first coach, and pulled me into coaching and invited me onto the TVYLL board, and started all of this. Again, Scott Billing and Mark Erickson, and those guys in Eagle, Brian Graham, and we've all coached together, did the middle school stuff together. I really enjoyed the time and the mentorship and the friendship with those guys. Um, and then as we launched into starting that middle school league and
Mhm.
then breaking off into SWILA, there's quite a few people that have been involved in both of those. You know, Neil Nelson being one, Phil and Mona Warshall, as we talked about.
Mhm.
Um, the Studebakers and Zach Mullock at Boise, Joe Dannenfeld and Scott Kelly at Timberline, Steve Bain at Valley View. I think he did
Mhm.
and has continued to do fantastic things at Valley View of growing both their men's and women's, not just high school programs, but youth programs as well. Um, sorry, I'm checking a couple of notes here. James Buck is pretty much lacrosse in Emmett,
Mhm.
and has done a fantastic job over there as well. Again, we talked about Gary Wheeler. Jim Bradbury was another coach. He was a board president at Eagle for a long time, was highly involved in IMSA and SWILA starting up. So all those people, and there's a ton of other people, and I'm sorry I can't mention them all here, but we're really instrumental in pushing lacrosse forward here for athletes in the valley. So I just really want to thank all of them, and then again, Coach O'Neill, Coach Blanchard, what they're doing at the college level, Logan Ball at True Lacrosse, and um, Lynn Porterfield, again, Braden Hilton, who's leading up 208 lacrosse and giving between he and Logan True and 208, giving kids opportunities to play in the summer and get recognized outside of this area have just been huge. But I think, like your other two guests, thanking you for all you've done
Yeah.
for continuing to push lacrosse forward and people being able to watch our games on the internet and stream those games. I know it was
Yeah.
huge for me. My mom, my dad, who lives out of the area, being able to watch Henry's
Hmm.
games, um, and just all you're doing for lacrosse here. Really wanted to thank you.
We're having a great time. Thanks
Yeah.
for
So
mentioning it, and we're hoping to do more.
and
So,
I got to throw out one more
okay,
name
let's
because
do it.
I'm hoping
Absolutely.
he'll mention my name on his podcast at some point. But
Okay.
a pretty recent add to the valley, but Nick Ocello,
Yeah.
and he is really passionate about lacrosse. Really wants to help athletes reach that next level if they're really interested. And Nick's one that attends all these USA lacrosse meetings with Lynn and how can we
Hmm.
grow and make lacrosse better in the valley. And there's a lot of energy and a lot of passion there. So really looking forward to Nick being a leader going forward in pushing lacrosse here in the Treasure Valley and all of Idaho
Absolutely.
forward.
When I get a budget someday, maybe I can afford to have them on.
Yeah, well,
So,
he's pretty highfalutin, so good luck there.
yeah, that's great. I appreciate you calling out those folks and um, giving them a spotlight. They absolutely deserve it, just like yourself. Uh, in closing here, a couple fun things.
Mhm.
Let's talk about how pumped you are to see Henry play.
Oh, man, I can't tell you how excited I am that he chose College of Idaho. He had taken some recruiting trips to schools in Utah and
Hmm.
Colorado and North Carolina and Virginia, and especially that Virginia one. I remember sitting there after the tour and everything he did, and I was excited if he
Yeah.
decided that was the right place for him. But I remember I was also a little sad, and I was realizing I'm not going to be able to see many of his games. I might be able to see a game or two live in person every year. So when we got back here and he decided to reach out to Drake and took the tour there, and I don't think we were off campus before he said, "Yeah, this is it." I was just thrilled because I certainly get to see all his home games now.
Hmm.
The travel games, most of them aren't that far away, so I expect I'll get to see 75 or 80% of his games for the
Yeah.
next 4 years, and the whole crew that Drake's brought in there. A really really young team,
Hmm.
a lot of freshmen and sophomores. I'm really excited about that freshman team because 9 of those kids
Hmm.
have played club lacrosse together for a number of years, so there's
Yeah.
there's some built-in chemistry and all the big time transfers they're bringing in from Wingate and some other
Okay.
schools. I think
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a really
Yeah.
exciting team to watch, and I just can't say enough about how
Hmm.
excited I am there.
I agree. I think it's great when we can, wherever it is, keep those Idaho players here and help build, and then these younger guys, like we've been talking about, come and watch those guys play here locally.
Oh
And those little those little guys look up to those players,
yeah,
and as they should, right? And be
yeah,
able to showcase our Idaho talent here locally. I'm pumped, man. I think it's going to be great. I think I'm with you. Like, I'm
yeah,
excited to see Henry out there and what he can do, and then also just playing with a lot of great players too, and
yeah,
freeing him up to do even more.
yeah.
It's going to be exciting.
It's going to be a good time for sure.
Yeah. Okay. That's Oh, almost forgot. After all these years, do you have any game time superstitions, any rituals? Even though you're not coaching anymore, still a
uh,
fan.
The only thing that pops to my mind, unlike Drake or Logan, I
Hmm.
don't have a particular shirt I wear, the
Okay.
same pair of socks that, I haven't washed in 3 years. Um, I've always been very superstitious about stepping on the field and until the game starts. You know,
Okay.
if Henry or Clara were playing a game and I
Hmm.
was doing like the field setup, I walked around the outside of the field to set the cones. I wasn't cutting across the field, doing any of those kind of things. So I don't know where that started or why, but I just made sure I stayed off the
Yeah.
game field until after that
Right.
first whistle blew.
I have a thing where you don't step on the line.
Yeah,
Whatever you
yeah,
do not step on that line if you're going to step on the field.
yeah,
So
absolutely.
that's funny. And then, is that why you take the long way around the whole time?
Yeah.
Okay. Just wondering why.
But if it's an emergency, and I have to, I'll cut through the middle of the field. But you'll also notice I stay
Yeah.
pretty close to the midline there and get directly across. But yeah, I typically try to stay off the field if one of my kids
Okay.
are playing.
Hey, Greg, I want to thank you for making time for us here today and the last decade of time that you've
Oh,
made for so many people. And it's been great get to know you better here, talk about all the impact that you've had. I know you would never talk about that unless I made you, and you deserve to be celebrated. And it just goes to show like anybody can get into this, and
yeah,
anybody can help,
yeah,
and anybody can make a difference. And you're going to find a love for this that maybe you didn't know about, and uh, meet some incredible people.
absolutely.
So once again,
Yeah.
thanks for making time,
But
and
I
I look
appreciate
forward
it.
to seeing you on the sidelines.
Can't wait. Thank you,
All right,
sir.
buddy. Have a great night.